Now, mind you, I have 4 properties in Arizona. One of them is 5,000 square feet near Scottsdale. So
Holy.
not only do I lose the money I gave him for the rehabs, but I'm making payments every month. I have to pay the negative. I have to also go in and rehab these properties. So, you talked about how I wish I just shortened your timeline to 2 months and you would have gotten out of it. Dude, I wish I would have just wholesaled all those properties right then and there and kissed my rehab money goodbye, because that would have been like 75,000 versus the total of 220,000 that he ended up taking.
Hey guys, it's your favorite real estate investor, Brian Davila, and today I am interviewing Adrian Hernandez. He is a real estate wholesaler, investor, and entrepreneur, and we're gonna go over some of our biggest fails. This is gonna be one of the most entertaining interviews in real estate history. But before we get to the interview, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I hope you guys enjoy this one, and I'll see you at the end. Before we start, how are you doing today, Adrian?
Ryan, I'm alive. I'm excited. I'm full of energy. I'm excited to be on the call nonetheless, man. And I was just telling Brian right before we started, just huge kudos to you, man, and everything that you're doing. You're really putting a lot out there for the real estate community, sharing it in a very authentic way. So I just wanted to say kudos to you and thank you for having me on, man. I'm really, really excited.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to make the best real estate content out there. So the first thing that we'll talk about, which is going to be fun, is our losses flipping real estate. We've made money, I know Adrian and I have made millions in real estate, but we have also taken losses.
Yeah.
So I had a property in Georgia. I live in California. I thought it was a good idea to virtually flip. Bought the property, never seen it, just photos. I've never been to Georgia. I know nothing about Georgia. I had no real help. And I was supposed to sell the house for $215. I ended up selling it for $185. I was supposed to put $20,000 as a rehab. I ended up spending $55,000.
Jesus.
It was supposed to be a 90-day turnaround. Ended up being a 6-month turnaround.
Let's say double.
I'm still getting bills for that house of stuff that I just didn't pay or people ripping me off. But ended up, I made no money in 6 months. I even cried in April because the pandemic hit. The contractor was pretty much extorting me. He was just like, if you don't send me money, I'm going to take your granite countertops. And
wow.
He did. He took.
No, he did not.
Yeah, he took the doors off the cabinets and sent me a picture. He's like, wow, if you don't send me money, I'm going to tear this house apart. At the end, I ended up having to stand up to him. I installed cameras and he covered them up. I had to call the police. The police showed up, had to take him out of the property. They were pooping in the backyard in the shed. It was just like they had a dog. They had a dog living in the property full time. They were smoking cigarettes in the property. So that's my story. I lost 6 months of time. And sometimes if I could have cut that 6 months to 2 months and lost 20 G's, I would have took the loss of 20 G's because 6 months of just every day having to talk to this man, and he was on drugs and it was crazy. But 6 months, I probably lost like $5,000, but a lot of work.
Yeah. And it's funny, dude. We don't look at the timeline, and I think one of investors' biggest mistakes is they don't look at time.
Yeah,
the holding cost on that, and not only that, think about how much business you didn't get because the energy that was focused on that damn deal.
I know. That's why I was thinking about it the other day. I'll ask you, if I were to say, Adrian, you could go to jail for 1 year. You have to be in jail, or you could pay $100,000. What would you do?
I'm gonna pay $100,000.
And most people would not. Me 7 years ago, I would be like, oh no, I'll save the $100,000. I'll just stay. But That was my biggest, mistake in flipping virtually or flipping in general. Flipping virtually is very hard. Could you go over some of your experiences flipping virtually?
Yeah, we've had great um, call it success flipping real estate, but we've also had a lot of negative, and I would call it losses on flipping real estate virtually, especially out of state, guys. And I won't even say virtually, more out of state.
Mhm.
So we went to Nick Ramirez and I. We went and we bought a few properties in Texas. We flipped those, and those went okay. Well, I had the bright idea that I want to go to Arizona. So I went to Arizona and I had this like deal. He was a wholesaler, he was a referral, and in essence, he started sending me deals. I bought a property, thought it was the best property on the market, right? Like I'm going to cash flow at least $1,200. I'm buying it for 50,000. Put $25,000 into it. So I buy that house. He brings me another house right around the corner. Looks pretty good. We buy that one. We end up buying a total of 4 properties in Phoenix, Arizona. We
Mhm.
buy 4 properties. I go down there and I realize that the first property I bought at 50,000, it's sitting on dirt. There's no foundation. There's no foundation at all. It's just sitting on dirt. And I get there and I'm like, so I look at the guy who's sending the property, I'm like, you told me there was foundation. Wow, this is, and then he goes on. I should have known at that point, right? Makes up some weird excuse about the way properties are in Phoenix, and it's a simple fix. And long story short, guys, this guy ended up. So I come back to California. I don't show up for 3 months. This guy, in essence, I was sending him money. He never used that money to fix up any of these projects. He was taking the money, sending me photos of other properties he was working on. I finally caught on to what was going on, drove out there, confronted the guy. He finally admitted he used all the money I gave him for another property and said, I'll pay you back in 30 days. Don't worry. Like I have this property. I go to file a deed of trust. I go to record a deed of trust against his property and he vanishes. He takes off. Can't find him, can't do anything. By the time I go to record on the property, he sells it, takes his cash, and vanishes. Now, mind you, I have 4 properties in Arizona. One of them is 5,000 square feet near Scottsdale. So
Holy.
not only do I lose the money I gave him for the rehabs, I'm making payments every month. I have to pay the negative. I have to also go in and rehab these properties. So, you talked about how I wish I just shortened your timeline to 2 months and you would have gotten out of it. Dude, I wish I would have just wholesaled all those properties right then and there and kissed my rehab money goodbye, because that would have been like 75,000 versus the total of 220,000 that he ended up taking, going God knows where with. I've been able to contact him. I've hired an attorney and we filed a lawsuit. But you guys, this stuff happens. So when you see these gurus, when you see everybody posting these pictures of these big checks, I
Mhm.
always have to ask you, what is the net?
Yeah.
Did they have any losses? Is that a true, real number that they're showing on their paycheck?
Yeah.
Because we all think it's flip or flop makes it look so easy until
Mhm.
you lose 100 grand, 5 grand, 10 grand. You know how that is. You know how that
Yeah.
feels like.
Yeah. So hold on. That was so much information. So did you end up selling the 4 houses or did you wholesale them?
So I sold one, but I still took a loss on it. We sold it for 170 and we bought it for 150. And so I had also the rehab money out on that and the holding costs. So I
Okay.
ended up losing $44,000 prior to rehab on one of the houses that I wholesaled. The
Mhm.
little one that was sitting on dirt, I ended up finishing. I ended up finishing and making 42,000 on that one.
Well, that's
And
good.
then the other 2 houses is where I took the big loss. One of them was 5,000 square feet. So I had to go in there. I had to put $100,000 into the property only to sell it $100,000 short of what my loan was.
God damn.
Yeah, the city, right before I was supposed to close, the city came, put a red tag on my property, said, "Oh, your permit expired." They charged me $50,000 just for me to record on the property without me having to do additional work. Dude,
50?
50,000. It was a complete roller coaster. So when I add up all the numbers, when I go what I profited on that one house, what
Uh-huh.
I barely got away with on the one that I wholesaled, and the other two, it's roughly about 220.
You lost 220.
Lost 220. I'll probably
That's
get some of it back in the lawsuit that I'm with, but
yeah.
we never know, right? We never know. I've heard stories of them it never going through. But
Yeah.
these are things that look at things happen. That could have completely derailed me. But I look at the picture like this. This is my perspective.
Hmm.
I just lost 220,000. Yes, I'm actually excited because if I lost 220, that means I'm bound to make 2.1.
Yeah. That's a great mindset. And the before we get to the mindset really quick, the irony of my story, he ended up filing a lien on my property and I had to pay him another $8,000 after I had him kicked off. It was ridiculous. The laws in Georgia were so contractor friendly. I was
Yeah.
just like, how am I stuck? I couldn't sell my house until I paid him an additional $8,000 after he destroyed my house, took stuff that was smoking in it. But
Jesus.
yeah, so, but it's all good.
So
But
don't viewers don't trust everybody, okay? Do your background. Don't trust everybody. And if you
no.
can, so I got to ask you a question though, Brian. So
Yeah.
obviously you went through that experience.
Mhm.
Would you stay locally in your market and just hyper focus there, or would you go out of state again?
I will never flip out of state ever again in my life, no matter what. Because one thing that I learned, here's some lessons. We can share our lessons. If you're going to flip anywhere, you need boots on the ground that you trust. And the word trust, I'll define. It has to be someone that you don't work with and you trust. Like, for example, your brother, your cousin, someone that there's no monetary business between, right? Because the people that I trusted over there were the contractor and the person that sold me the deal. But the person that sold me the deal, they just wanted to get that wholesale fee, right?
Yep.
So I had no one that I really could trust all the way. So everyone that was checking on the house for me, they were giving me fake news. I had to put cameras in the house to see what was really going on. So if you're going to flip out of state, you need to have someone that you trust with your life there to manage the property. It's very hard to do it uh, virtually. Second thing, the guy was not even a contractor. At the end, I tried to go file a complaint, and he didn't even have a license. It
Wow.
was a disaster. It was a disaster. But what did you learn? What were
Those
some things that you learned really?
those are good lessons, by the way. Good
Yeah,
lessons. Yeah,
huge.
and very similar to you, my biggest thing was don't trust everybody, right? I'm a very trusting person. Like I give people the benefit of the doubt all the time, way more than I should. And so for me, it helped me become very aware that I need to not be so trusting. I need to not be so giving and really, really understand who I'm working with. That was number one.
Mhm,
Number two, what I realized is stay in your lane.
mhm,
So I was doing fine. I was doing fine flipping in Los Angeles. I'm doing fine flipping in the Inland Empire. I have the right boots on the ground, as you just said. I have the
mhm,
right team in place. And I let my ego, because what I was listening to, all the different distractions infect my mind where I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to go out of state. That sounds like a great freaking idea. And
yeah,
I get out of my lane. And what happens when you get out of your lane? You get detoured. So
yeah,
stick to what we do best, guys. Look
mhm,
at there's more than one way to operate and sell real estate. There's more than one way to find a wholesale deal, to own multiple properties.
mhm,
Pick two or three and stick to those.
mhm.
Stop trying to go so wide with everything. And that was the biggest aha. And I would say that was roughly around the time that I was closing down my brokerage. And I realized that also. I don't want to say my brokerage, but a brokerage that I own.
Mhm.
A brokerage that I own that I was part owner on, I ended up shutting that down because I realized same thing. When you go too wide, it's
Mhm.
not you can't control it,
Mhm.
right? Stay in your lane. Stay between the borders that you know best. So those were my lessons.
Yeah, I think great lessons. Random question also. How did you deal with taking that kind of loss? Because me, I notice sometimes I freak out over stuff that's not even that big. Like little things can just piss me off to the point, well, it'll ruin my week. Like if I don't get a deal, I'll be upset for like 3 days. Like that will really bother me. How did you? I know you said if you lost 200, you can make 2 million. How did you get over that?
Yeah. So I would say I started working on my mindset right when I got into the game. So 2013, actually 2012 is when I got into real estate as a real estate agent. So
Mhm.
from 2012, I've been going to Tony Robbins events. I listen to books on a on a weekly basis. Actually, I am going through positive affirmations. I realized I had an aha. I realized that everything I've been doing since 2012 straightened my mindset so I could deal with that in a positive manner.
Mhm.
Now, I'm going to be a human, and I'm also going to say here, guys, I was derailed for a good 2 to 3 months. A good 2 to 3 months, I was in my head. I was dreaming about it. I couldn't sleep because about it. I was sick about it. I couldn't eat. My wife was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "This loss, like I'm going crazy. I don't understand this." And then I had to remember all the mindset work that I've done. I had to remember and get back to the basics.
Mhm.
So at that same time is when I went to Date with Destiny with Tony Robbins. And
Mhm.
Date with Destiny, it was just at the perfect time for me to go through that program because my wife and I did it together. And I realized that, and Tony always says this, life does not happen to you, life happens for you. And,
Mhm.
and, and I have to be grateful for the losses because if I'm grateful for the losses, then that means I'm just going to be that much more appreciative when I win from it. It's
Yeah.
all a mindset, guys. I believe this business, I personally believe this business is 95% mindset.
Mhm.
Because those of us that don't have the mindset in order, we earn all this money, we have a loss, or the market changes and something catastrophic happens. They get out of the business.
Yeah.
Think about how many people in 2007 and 2008 jumped off of bridges because they couldn't deal with it mentally.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the whole point of this game. I believe the stronger you can get your mindset, the more we can achieve greatness in this business. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, and it's very interesting you said that too because even during COVID, when coronavirus first hit, I lost money on deals
Remember you
because
telling me?
I panicked. That Georgia deal was going on, but I also let go of deals that in hindsight I could have made 20, 40, $50,000, but I
Yep.
got scared. I didn't look at the facts, the inventory, the interest rates. I panicked. I'm like, nope, I don't want these. I don't want these. Let them go. And I lost money. I sold houses. I panic sold. I sold a house that I didn't even start rehabbing yet just because I was scared. So,
Yeah, dude, I went through the same thing. I mean, ask Nick. I told him the moment that happened, we did not buy anything for 3 months. I was literally petrified.
yeah,
I was scarred. Like, nope, we're not buying it. Why? It just no. And even Nick was like, dude, you got to get over this loss, man. We can't buy another deal with you in your head like this.
yeah.
So it's really good. We're all human, guys. The whole point is we need to work on it every single day.
Yeah. Okay. So next topic I want to talk about. Um, I've known of you for let's just say 4 or 5 years now. You've been a successful realtor. You've been a successful wholesaler, a successful investor. You've ran a brokerage. You opened a brokerage. How are you able to be so successful in all these different things? And some people can't even like get their first deal. How are you able to jump from here to here to here to here? You're doing deals in California, you're doing deals in Cleveland, Ohio. How are you able to do all these things?
Yeah, great question. What I would say, guys, is it started 9 years ago. So this is a marathon, not a sprint. So to answer your question, I started off, as Brian mentioned, I started off selling real estate when I was 21 years old. So from 21 to 26, all I focused on was selling real estate. I started doing flips in 2015. Yeah, 2015 is when I did my first flip because I knew that I didn't want to be the average traditional real estate agent. So I started doing that in 15. 2016 is when things started to, or was when I opened my brokerage,
Mm-hmm.
when I partnered on, and that's when I realized a couple of things. From 2016 to 2018, I realized that, and I learned this from Tony Robbins. So I'm going to talk a lot about Tony, but I learned this from Tony Robbins. You do not want to be the CEO. You
Mm-hmm.
want to eventually have CEOs.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to realize the business aspect, the business owner aspect of it versus the operating aspect. However, I had to get good at the little things in order for me to get good at the big things. So I got good at selling real estate. I got good working with buyers and sellers.
Hmm.
I wanted to get good at flips. So I started doing flips. I started partnering with the right people, understanding that partnering. Do I'd much rather do 20 flips with a partner going 50-50 on half of those flips versus me doing 10 flips all on my own.
Okay.
It just makes more sense. So what I learned is like money is like fertilizer. If you keep it in one area, it's going to start to stink. So with money, you have to spread it around. You have to spread it around and get other areas to grow. But at the same time, we have to encourage and push the people and lead other people, allow other people to take ownership of that, and you not be the owner of everything.
Hmm.
So how I was able to do it is I got good selling real estate, and then I got understood flipping, but I did not become a master at it because that's someone else's job. That's a partner of mine's job to get good at that. And then I got good at understanding wholesale, which goes hand in hand with working with sellers. And then in my thought is, how can I empower people to run the wholesale division? How can I empower somebody to run the brokerage? How can I empower somebody to run my real estate team? Now I'm still involved in each area. I still pick up the phone. I was just sending out text messages before we got on. I'm still an active caller, but I'm empowering people to lead one of my businesses as if it was one of their own. But
Okay.
I can't do this without people. That's number one. I have to empower other people and give them the opportunity to do it. Like I own a brokerage. So Real Living here in Dana Point. I have a partner that she has a significant amount of equity in that brokerage, but she's in charge of running it. I'm in charge of empowering it, coaching it, but it's her job to run it. The Perfect Home Buyer, that's a wholesaling company. Nick runs the Perfect Home Buyer. Now, Nick has a very huge, substantial equity gain in that company, but I had to empower him to do that. Him and I together were stronger than being apart as competitors.
Yeah.
Right? And then I do the same thing in my real estate company. So I hope that makes sense. And I hope that answers your question. But the biggest thing I learned was empower people to be the CEO.
That's huge because I think a lot of people, they want to make 100%, even if it's less. Even if it's less, they're like, oh, at least I'm getting 100%. But you're okay with other people making money, and in return, that's going to bring you even more money because they have equitable interest in the business as much as you do.
Absolutely. And I learned it. Eddie Salinas, you know Eddie. Eddie
Yeah.
Salinas, my partner in flipping, dude, he's the one that really taught me this. He goes, why, Adrian, why are you trying to take 100% of 5 deals? Why don't you go do 15 deals and partner with somebody, go 50-50? You're going to make way more money. And think about how much more time you have for yourself.
Yeah.
Like I go check on the projects, but it's really like Eddie does that. If I really didn't need to, Eddie would take care of that.
Yeah.
So it's also freeing up more time so I can go create another business where I can empower somebody and have them do it.
Yeah. Okay, so last thing we'll talk about. You have you coach people because you've been successful in all these things, but you coach realtors, which I think is huge because a lot of brokers in 2020 and before, they want you to be in a box. Let's keep it 100.
150%.
They want you to call expireds. Don't keep your blinders on. Don't peek on the other side of the investment wall. So, can you talk about your coaching?
Yeah. And in essence, guys, so I first and foremost going to say I do not have this all figured out. I'm still learning. I learned from Brian, whether he knows it or not. I watch the shows. I listen to him. I learn from him. I do not have this all figured out. But what I do have figured out, what I have accomplished, and what I do know is what I'm teaching real estate agents. And it's in essence how to go from real estate agent to real estate entrepreneur. Just like Brian said, so spot on. There's no real estate broker that's going to teach you investments. Why? Because they don't make money on it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no profitability from them. So why are they going to teach you it? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't benefit their pocket. And that's the problem with the industry. You see, if brokers were to teach this, more people would stay with them. I know of a brokerage that teaches and empowers their teams and their top producers to do this. That person never has any turnover. If people leave, it's because they're going to go start their team or their brokerage, but it's very rare that their agents are consistently leaving. So I thought about it and I said, why? Well, it's because he's teaching what all the other brokers aren't teaching.
Hmm.
So what I'm doing, guys, is I'm being a help. I'm really being a beacon of light for real estate agents to understand what you need to do to add wholesaling, to add flipping, to add BRRRR, whatever the case may be,
Hmm.
to your existing business.
Yeah. And again, when I was at a previous brokerage, I'm like 95% flipper now. I asked the manager of the office, I was like, hey, I want to learn about flipping. And his answer was, you don't want to worry about flipping. You're good at being on the phones. Focus about being on the phones. And then if you get a deal, just bring it to me. I was like, okay. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, okay. So now I know what it really is. And then you also have a course, right, called Ascend.
Yes, yeah. So the course, the Ascend, is just a wholesale course. It's how to wholesale property from start to finish. But it also goes into for real estate agents on. It talks about that at the beginning, how to wear different hats, how to show up to a listing presentation with multiple forms of options for them.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So you have Ascend coaching, and then you also have a daily accountability call that I'm a part of most sometimes. What can you tell us about that really quick?
we love when you join, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
To get on.
And how this all came about, guys, it started when the pandemic hit. When Corona hit, I'm so used to having an environment and people around me early in the morning. So when I didn't have that, what I did, I just created a little accountability group, and it's been growing. There's 30 people on it every day.
Mhm.
From 8:30, people role play from 8:30 to 9, and then from 9, we share wins. We talk about what we're going to do for the day, what's working, words of encouragement. We say some affirmations, right? Because I believe affirmations spoken over and over and over again eventually becomes who you are. So we go through affirmations, and then we all get on the phones. We all prospect till 12 o'clock, share our wins. People hop on, hop off. There's some consistency and there's some inconsistency, and that's okay. Everybody's business is different. But the point is we have a culture and a virtual environment for agents to join, and it's free, guys. We don't charge for it.
All right, guys, me and Adrian's call actually dropped, so that was the end of the interview. But if you're still here, smash the like button. It helps me out, and I would greatly appreciate it. All of Adrian's contact information is going to be listed below, so if you want to reach out to him, go do it. He's a great guy, and I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'll see you on the next interview.